never heard that, but that's the origin of CAP. I'm going to look this up. I'm going to look.
There's a principle that
Right.
we have to follow.
Yeah.
We have to have.
Be true to yourself. You don't have
And when I came back, the place was a mess. So I knew I was missed.
Deep in here now.
It's incredible.
I love it.
Me
That's
too.
good.
That's
Yeah.
good.
And applying the recovery, I thought.
Hey, good afternoon, people. Here we are recording in Getting the Herd. I've got a special guest this week. I heard his story at one of our community meetings, a bit of it, and I was like, that needs to be out there. This would be a good good conversation to have about recovery. His name is Torrey. He's from Nottoway County, which is not too far from here. He just started working here at McShin as a PRS, and so we're just getting to know him as well as you are at the same time. And I'll just let him introduce himself.
Yeah. So what's up, everybody? My name's Torrey. Like Steve was saying, I just started working here at McShin. I was afforded the opportunity to come here and just work at this excellent foundation. I really didn't know anything about it, but since being here, it's just awesome here. It's a lot of love in the building. It's a lot of peers here, which is amazing. I had never heard of a peer-ran organization, that was ran by peers from the top to the bottom. And I just think that's so beneficial in recovery when you have someone with experience, that you can relate to, you can kind of give them hope, and they can see for themselves like a walking testimony. So yeah, it's awesome here, man.
Yeah, same here. I hadn't heard of any peer-led program or really peer participating program until about 6 months to a year before I started working here. And that would have saved me so many years of struggle, I think. And it seems to help a lot of us here. So yeah, how did you find out about the peer support training in general?
So I just got home from being incarcerated. So I was incarcerated for about 8 years, almost 9 years.
Okay.
So while I was incarcerated, my last 2.5 years, I had to go do a drug program, and it was at a facility called Indian Creek. And while I was there, I had already been in recovery for about 5 years. But I didn't really think that I had needed the program, but I didn't know anything about recovery. I didn't know anything about coping skills or recovery capital. So when I got there, I used to just sit in the back of groups. We used to do like 5 groups a day, and I didn't share because I didn't feel like I needed it.
Right.
But then I started listening, and one day during group, I just decided to just basically just tell my story, So I stood up one day and I explained to everybody why I was there. And a few guys after group came up to me, a couple participants, and they were saying how me telling my story really like inspired them. It kind of helped them. And then I learned they had a position in the program called a peer mentor.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a peer recovery specialist.
Right.
You're basically like modeling good behavior, helping guys. And then they came out with this flyer that they posted saying about the peer recovery position. And I had never heard of that before either.
Right.
And when a counselor was explaining to me what it was, they were like, this is an actual profession that you can do when you get home, and it pays, you can get a job, and it's basically just you telling your story. So it's like all the mistakes that I had made in life and all the F-ups that I had did, now they could be used for something.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, for sure.
That must have been an amazing moment right there.
Yeah, it was like a full circle moment. It was almost like, my higher power was telling me like, I set this up just for you, because with my situation of why I was incarcerated, I always wondered like, why did this happen?
Yes. Why me? I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why me? Why did this tragic mistake happen to me? And it was like a full circle moment. And it was basically like, I hear people say all the time, your purpose finds you.
Yes.
And
yes.
I felt like, and I really felt it in my spirit, like my purpose finally found me.
At what point in your life did you feel like substance use became like a factor in how things were going for you, like your success or lack thereof?
So fresh out of high school, I was in active addiction. I was using. I was in a lifestyle that involved the streets a lot, and I went to college. And when I went to college, I went to ODU, and my first full year at ODU, I did absolutely nothing. I stopped going to class. I was basically just living on campus, just living my life. I was using, partying, and I got a letter in the mail that went home to my grandmother, And she called me like the last month of the second semester and was like, I just got a letter. They say you're suspended for a year.
Oh boy.
And I was like, what am I suspended for? And she was like, it says you have a 0.0 GPA and your attendance is 0.
Wow.
Yeah. And the whole time I was calling her like every week saying, she's asking me like, how's class been going? And I'm like, oh, it's going great. I'm taking tests.
Right.
But it all came out in the light that. So that was like my first glimpse of, maybe, this lifestyle is, hindering me, but I didn't take heed to it. So I came home and I just got a regular 9-to-5 job at warehouses. And after work or before work, I was still, in active addiction. I was still using, still in the streets.
Right. And
then had a couple run-ins with the law, had a couple possession charges. I got a distribution charge. And you would think then that that light bulb kind of would have went off.
Yeah.
But, I was already in active addiction. I was already, I wasn't thinking clearly, you know. So all of that just kept compiling. And then one night, I was out with a group of friends and with me and a couple of my homeboys. And I dropped them off at the end of the night. And I was on the way home and a friend called me and asked me to come see her. So I was on the way to go see her. She lived about an hour and a half from where I stayed.
Right.
But in my mind, I was like, I can make it, and on the way there, about halfway there, I blacked out behind the wheel.
Oh man.
Yeah. And I was involved in a head-on collision.
Right.
And the person that I hit, unfortunately, they passed away from their injuries. So that's how I ended up getting into the penitentiary, doing that 8 years and almost 9 years in prison.
Wow, that's a good while. I mean, that must have been a really heavy experience.
Yeah, it was. It was at that moment. I hate that something so tragic had to happen for me to have that light bulb moment that I need to change my ways.
Right.
But unfortunately, it happened. And once I got incarcerated, that was when I knew something had to change.
Right. That's what I was thinking when you were talking about college. Like, for many of us, a factor, as I learn people's stories, and myself included, magical thinking is like a real symptom. Like you're at college not doing what you feel like doing, what you're compelled to do, but you don't realize what the consequences are going to be at that point.
Yeah.
And just like later on, when you went out that night, that magical thinking's taken place, which it has for most of us at some point, and you end up with consequences. But you were thinking the whole time, this is not going to happen.
Right. Because basically coming up in life, you always hear of tragic situations happening. But when you're in active addiction or when you're living a certain lifestyle, you always have this, that can never happen to me.
Right.
Until it happens.
Right.
And that's basically what happened to me. I was unfortunately, I was another case where something very tragic happened because of my actions, because of my decision.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Was that the moment that you or was it before that you really thought substance use was the real factor that was holding you back or causing?
In that moment, I knew that substance use was really taking me down a path that I didn't think my higher power meant for me to take. But even after the accident, I was still in active addiction because I didn't have any coping skills.
Right.
I didn't have those tools that, we learn in recovery that we need. I still didn't have those tools. So even after the accident, I was still using because I didn't understand why I was feeling the way I was feeling, and I didn't know how to cope with that. So my only way of coping was self-medicating.
Right.
It was still drinking, it was still using, it was still smoking. Well, whatever I needed to cope, whatever could numb that feeling that I was feeling.
Right.
That's what I ran to.
Yeah, understandable. I mean, so you took the PRS training. How did that work out? Did they just ask people who wants to do this?
Right. So it was crazy. And once again, every time I think back on it, I really can tell that it was meant for me because they only offered it to 2. They say we're only offering it to 2 inmates in the whole prison.
Wow. Okay.
And it was 1,200 people in the prison. So they gave the opportunity to the peer mentors first. So it was about maybe 15 to 20 of us.
Yeah.
So we all interviewed for it, and I was one of the lucky ones who got picked. So we interviewed and we did a virtual PRS class.
Okay.
So it was us 2 from Indian Creek. It was 5 people from Greensville Correctional Center, some people at Dillwyn. So all together, it was about 15 of us. And we did a virtual 72-hour training. It took about 2 weeks to do.
Excellent. What struck you about that?
As far as
when did it start to affect you, the training or?
I want to really the instructor for the training, Mr. Leroy Robinson. He told us the first day of the training. He said when he took the training, it changed his life. It changed how he looked at recovery. And hearing that, I'm just thinking he was trying to sell me on it. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like he's the trainer, like he's just promoting it.
Yeah.
But after about the second or third day, it changed my total view of recovery. You know what I mean? Because it kind of like humanized it. Going to rehabs and going to recovery centers before is real clinical.
Yes.
But when you bring a peer in, it just it changes the whole way that an individual can look at recovery.
Right.
Yeah, it was definitely eye-opening.
So how long have you been out? You got your PRS certification while you were incarcerated.
Right.
You got out, and then how did it go from there?
So I came home in September of 2025. I've been home about 7 months now, and I was a little scared when I first came home from prison. Because,
understandable.
And it really didn't have anything to do with because I've missed so much time. It was because I knew, at least I thought I knew in my mind of who I had changed to be while I was incarcerated. But I knew that the real test was when I came home.
Yeah.
When I go back home to the same areas, or when I go back around family, or, just coming back into the world in general, it was, okay, here's the test. Like, are you really the Torrey who you think you are now? Or was that just some prison version of me? And am I still the same Torrey I was before I got locked up?
Right.
You know what I mean?
It takes some adjustment there.
For sure. But, after, I want to say like my second or third week home, I really found out like, this is who I am now. I'm very passionate about it. And I don't want to do anything else but recovery work, but, obstacles came. I came home with my certification. I got state certified while I was in, and the way they promoted it in prison was when I came home, it wouldn't be anything to get a job.
Right. It'd be automatic.
Yeah. It's like they're hiring everywhere. You'll be able to get a job. So my first 7 interviews, I went for peer positions.
Right.
And the interviews went great. The directors of the program was like, we'd love to hire you. You're our number one candidate. But what I didn't know was being on probation, I got a lot of no's because the Department of Behavioral Health Services has a hard policy that says if you have a barrier crime plus on probation, it's a hard no that you can't work for someone who the department is funding. Yeah,
I've seen that. That has kept a lot of good qualified people out of this field that really, I think personally, not anybody else, that should not be the case. And we've tried to people have tried to make that change, and I think it'll happen sooner or later.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've heard that they just passed the bill. I'm not sure what the specifics of it are, but I know that they are talking about it in the Capitol in Virginia. So I'm glad those conversations are being had. Any chance I get, I speak on it because that is a big hindrance, to guys. That can be, if a person isn't persevering enough to get through that can, cause someone to kind of get discouraged a little bit,
right.
But I didn't let it discourage me. And I saw that a person I was incarcerated with, they came home a few months after I did. And I saw on Facebook that they were interning at McShin. So something just told me like, well, after all these no's, I said, well, I'm desperate at this point. Like I'm trying to get anywhere.
Yeah.
So I said, well, let me call McShin and see. So I called up here. I spoke to Jesse and I told him my story. And Jesse was like, look, man, on Monday, come in and just sit down and have a conversation with me.
Right.
So I came in, I had a conversation with him. And, he can't get you on full time here, but I can get your foot in the door and just get you on part time. And man, it was life saving.
Like the light came on for a second.
Yeah, because I started second guessing myself after getting those no's a little bit. Like, should I really be doing peer work? Is this really a job meant for me? Because I need to make some income.
Yeah,
and I could have went and got a warehouse job anywhere. I got job offers to work other places, but I'm really passionate about what I do, and I worked hard for my certification.
Yeah, for sure.
It wasn't easy getting that in prison, so it was like I really wanted to use that. So. McShin, they gave me an opportunity. I'm just so thankful. Like every day I come to work, like I would do this for free, because I'm just so passionate about it.
That's what I was talking about in group this morning. Like it's really a gift to have a job that you would do for free. I mean,
yeah.
Those of you out there that don't, I wish you did.
Right. And it's ironic because growing up, you always hear that, like, find something that you would do for free. But I never thought coming up that, I always thought like work is work. Like I'm never going to enjoy work that much, getting out the comforts of my bed to come to work. But every time I come here and every time I leave, I'm in such a great mood. You know what I mean? Because I'm motivated by the participants here, as much as they're motivated by me. Like seeing that light come in people's eyes and seeing it click for people, it's just it pays more here than anywhere. You know?
Right. That's a common experience here. Just seeing people change, like from early recovery, because a lot of them are just, you're meeting them a day after, like consequences or something fell apart or whatever, and they're at the lowest point, and you get to help and see them come up from that. That must have been really cool to feel like you're finally getting to use those skills.
Yeah, definitely. And it just makes me feel like, I really take the weight of what happened in my situation. I really carry that around, but it takes a little bit of that weight off when I really feel like now that situation didn't happen for no reason.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like all that tragic mistake and any other mistakes that I've ever made, they all have a purpose now. Like they have a meaning, and that's powerful.
Yeah, I've seen that. I mean, a lot of people that are here now that I know that are friends of mine, we all have stories, and a lot of us unfortunately have tragedies, like writing those stories of different types. And in the best case scenario, they motivate us,
For sure.
So how have you felt like coming here? Because you knew one person at least coming here.
Right.
And this is a really big community. That's why it's called a recovery community organization. It's a particularly large one. And how did it feel like walking into this place and like getting?
So when I walked in here, I kind of felt like an outsider a little bit because a lot of people who are employed here or who are around, they have all been through the McShin program.
Right.
So, I kind of came in like, are people going to kind of treat me different because I didn't go through the McShin program? But it is literally like a big family here. Like I felt so accepted. Everybody has welcomed me with open arms, and it's really like a family. Like when I come in, everyone's smiling. Everybody's, asking me if I need anything, and McShin is really like no other place I've ever experienced before.
Yeah, that's what I found one of the hardest things to convey to people out there, like what it's actually like here. It's really like you're in a different plane, some kind of like a spiritual awakening slightly. Just every time you walk in the building, that's why people come up here on their days off. They don't have to be here for any reason whatsoever, and they choose to be here.
Yeah, for sure.
What'd you think of that giant community meeting the other night? That's when I first heard like a part of your story, and I was like, this could be a really good podcast.
Right. The community meeting was amazing. I was a little nervous, because a lot of participants who aren't in intensive were there. And, it was me basically putting myself out there. But I got so much good feedback that next week. I had people coming up to me who are in sober living. And they're like, hey, man, I really appreciated you sharing your story.
Yeah.
And it was just like that. Once again, man, it was like a big family, man. It's really indescribable.
Yeah, just anybody out there, like our meetings and our groups all day are open to the public. So if you have a desire or you feel like you need something, come here. Just try it. Try it.
Right.
So what do you got planned in the future? What do you plan to do with this? I know you're working weekends right now, which I totally respect because I worked weekends here for about 2.5 years.
Right.
And that's the cool thing about it. I mean, that people don't know is you get like a really deep experience with the intensive participants because there's not that many staff. So you're like, you're really getting to know them,
right.
Taking them places.
Right. And my family, when I told my family I was working weekends, they were like, what, you're going to sacrifice every weekend, you know what I'm saying, to be up there? But I have such a good time coming up here on the weekends. Like you said, just spending time and developing that rapport with the intensive participants. So it's great. Ideally, like for the future, I would love to work here full time if the opportunity ever presents itself.
Right.
But right now, I'm just glad to have my foot in the door, and as long as I'm in the recovery field, doing peer work, I'm satisfied with it.
All right, this has been really good so far. I'm glad we got you on here. Is there anything at all that's like that you haven't said or that you'd like to say to people out there or our participants to give them hope, or just tell them anything you want?
Right. The biggest thing that I want people, whoever's watching this anywhere, if you're in recovery or if you're thinking about recovery or even if you've never thought about it or just making a lifestyle change, I just want people to know that you're not defined by your mistakes. No matter how deep rock bottom you hit, no matter what you've done in life, we're not judged by our mistakes. We're judged by how we bounce back from those mistakes. And there's always hope, man. Like there's always a chance. If you have breath in your body, there's always a time, there's always another opportunity just to make a change.
Right.
I mean,
that's good stuff. Sure. That's good stuff. Well, I'm so glad we got you on here. I mean, it's a gift to have people like you that I get to meet.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate it.
And I'm sure this is going to help somebody.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, man.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you. We'll have you back on again. We'd like to have you speak at the jail sometime with us.
Yeah, sure, man. I'm all open for that.
Live show, people. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.